Prosecutors in the Sean Combs trial went for something of a marathon closing argument today. The assistant U.S. attorney spoke for nearly 5 hours to the jury, making the government's final case for racketeering and sex trafficking charges.
Over the last 6 weeks, jurors heard from several witnesses, including Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. According to the prosecution, Combs was able to get away with his crimes because of the power and influence he held. Joining us live now is legal analyst Royal Oakes. Royal, thank you for your time here this afternoon.
You bet.
Yeah, closing arguments, a marathon session. The prosecution told the jurors to use common sense, implying that Combs is guilty. But this case isn't as simple as this.
No, it isn't. And Michael and Colleen, they may have taxed the patience of a jury to talk for 5 hours, but there was a lot of explosive stuff in there. Two main themes. One, he's guilty of a criminal enterprise, and they went through the arson allegations and bribery and kidnapping. And then the second element was the freak-offs equal sex trafficking. It wasn't consensual. There was violence. There were threats to reveal these sexual tapes to the women's families and friends. All of this added up to a very powerful final argument for the prosecution.
Well, as we know, he is charged with racketeering. That's something we typically see in gang cases. Has the prosecution made enough of a case here to prove that he actually used his business as a front for criminal activity?
That's the huge question, Colleen, and we really don't know the answer. We won't know until we hear from the jury. But the defense is going to have a lot to say tomorrow, because I think that there may be a sense on the part of this jury that they overcharged, that this is a bad guy. Even the defense attorneys admit. We all had to see that horrible beating video. But is it like Al Capone, with a bunch of thugs and Tommy guns? I think the argument is going to be a lot of the women have credibility problems. They're making tens of millions of dollars in lawsuit settlements. And they changed their story. They seem to be romantically entangled with him. He doesn't sound like the classic example of sex trafficking.
You know, as you mentioned, jurors will hear from Combs' attorneys. What else do you think will be part of their strategy to convince the jury here for a not guilty verdict?
I think they're really going to go after the idea of the overcharge, because you remember the very first week of the trial, it was an endless loop of that beating video. And I think the jury may have come away from that thinking, okay, where's the beef? We get it. He's a bad guy. You seem to want us to hate him, so we'll vote against him no matter what. But is he really a racketeer? Is he really the head of a crime family? Traditionally, you have a conspiracy with the head of the family having a lot of lieutenants. But here, there was basically no testimony from any of his aides. The chief of staff said she had no idea what was going on. So there's going to be a lot for the defense to talk about tomorrow. And then, of course, could be deliberation time as early as late tomorrow afternoon.
Royal, as we know now, the defense chose not to call any witnesses here. What can you read into that?
Confidence, Colleen. I think the defense said to themselves, we think we're ahead on points. And plus, to put Diddy on the stand would have been a huge gamble. I mean, we've all seen the explosive videos. His temper is just off the charts. When you're cross-examined in that context, it isn't just hours, it's days of being grilled, with the prosecutor basically pointing his finger into the chest of Diddy, redredging all of the terrible things he's done over the last few decades. A guy like that could blow, and that could mean he could snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
All right, Royal Oakes, as always, thanks so much for your time and your expertise on this. Appreciate it.
You bet.